In this lesson, we're going to talk about good debt and bad debt.
I'm a millionaire. Uncle Tony in the house, y'all.
In the previous sections, we learned about income. Income is money that enters our pockets, and expenses are things that make our money leave our lives. Also, we learned that there are two types of income: earned income and passive income. Bad debt is the debt that you pay from your salary and your earned income. Remember, bad debt is debt that you pay from your salary or your earned income. Good debt, yeah, there is something called good debt. Good debt is the one that somebody else pays for you, or it's paid by the passive income you produce. Let me explain. If you have a mortgage on a property and you pay that mortgage from your salary or your personal income, that would be classified as bad debt. On the other hand, if you buy a property and rent it out and the money from that rent pays for the mortgage, that would be considered good debt. Now let me tell you a story that happened to me about good debt and bad debt. Well, my dream was always to have office space in one of the fanciest areas in the city. And of course, that office space is very expensive. So I decided to call my banker. At that point in time, I didn't have enough to call a bank. My banker was my dad. So I called my dad and said, "Dad, I need money to buy some office space." And my dad was the type of person that hated wasting money on stupid things. But I begged him and he said, "Okay, I'm gonna lend you the money to buy that office building in one condition. You have to pay me back, or else your sister will own half of that office space if you don't pay me back." I said, "Okay, Dad." I wanted that office space so badly that I decided to buy it. So I bought that office space and I was paying my dad, I remember perfectly. I was paying him around $7,000 a month for the loan he gave me to buy that office space. And guess what? I was a newlywed, I just got married, and practically 90% of my salary went to pay for the stupid office space that I wanted to work at. And I was getting desperate. We had no money, my wife and I, practically to eat or do anything. And then I remember the concept of good debt and bad debt. So this office space was pretty large. It was around 5,000 square feet. And of course, I didn't need 5,000 square feet. I was just starting my business life. So what I decided to do was to put a wall in the middle and keep the half for me and rent out the other half. But guess what? I was lucky enough to rent out the second half to a friend of mine for that same $7,000. Normally, you couldn't get the $7,000, but I had purchased such good furniture and the location of the office was so great and everybody wanted to be in the building. So I was able to rent out the other half for that $7,000. So what happened? Now I only have half of my space and I was getting $7,000 from my friend. That $7,000 I got from rent, I immediately gave my dad every single month. So time passed and I collected rent and paid my dad beautifully. And all of a sudden, about 7 years have passed and the debt with my dad was settled. It was incredible. I didn't owe any money anymore. And actually, I didn't pay for the office. The guy who rented the office for me for 7 years was the person who actually paid for my office space. So I hope this example helps you how I turned a bad debt that I had by using my salary to pay my dad back and then converted it into a good debt by renting out half and using that half of the space to generate income for me to pay for my dad. Now, if half of the space wouldn't have made it, I would have reduced my space to whatever the size was necessary for me to recuperate the $7,000 a month in rent. It's very important to have only good debt. And I was lucky that I only had to give up half of my office space in order to convert it into good debt. Let me be clear, it's almost impossible to become a millionaire without using debt. Rich people have tons and tons of debt. The main difference is that rich people only acquire good debt. Remember, middle-class people acquire bad debt and they think it's good debt. So our goal would be to acquire as many income-producing assets with good debt. And remember, what is good debt? Good debt is debt that somebody else pays for. In the case of real estate, good debt would be rent that would pay for our mortgage and our expenses on our property. Remember, acquire as much good debt as you can. That's the only way to become truly, truly rich and truly, truly a permanent millionaire.
I'm a millionaire.